Welcome to the video, my precious princesses, my wonderful knights, and fabulous beings. Today I will be reading a My Hero Academia fanfiction called Flames by A.V. Kiyoshi. If you would like to read this story for yourself, I shall leave a link in the description below. For this story, your quirk will be light manipulation. Flames engulfed the forest, burning everything in its path. There was beauty in this sight, but Aki couldn't see it. Her mind raced as the flames spread, becoming dangerously close to where the young girl was stood. Tears filled her eyes as her body refused to move from that spot. Why here of all places? Why did the League attack here? Many questions flooded her mind as she collapsed to the ground, shaking at the thought that this was her demise. She closed her eyes and wished that this was a hallucination, a stupid mind trick that someone from 1B was playing. She kept her eyes shut, hoping that the minute she opened them everything would disappear. But no matter how many times she closed them and prayed, the flames did not go away. It surrounded her, the air becoming thick as fire surrounded the area, making it difficult to breathe. Smoke filled her lungs as her only escape was sealed off by a fallen tree. Now what? What could she do? She doubted anyone was around. They must have all made it back to the camp by now. Her raven hair wrapped around her arms. She wrapped her arms around herself, knowing her quirk couldn't get her out of this. She prayed silently that someone would find her. Back at the camp, everything was astir. All students freaking out about the villains still lurking around and their injured friends lying before them. The police had arrived by this point, making a head count of all those who were present. Todoroki's eyes widened when one name was called out as missing: Akio Yukushi. Without a second thought, he disbanded from the group and ran toward the forest. Many voices shouting, pleading him not to go. He ran in, all directions screaming her name, hoping that he could hear her and reply. He knew she was still out there. She wasn't the League's target. Ill thoughts about the girl's well-being clogged his mind, thinking about if she had encountered the League. Is she still alive? Did they hurt her? God, she must be scared. He pushed those thoughts out of mind and continued going deeper into the forest towards the raging fire. Aki stared helplessly at the sky as the area she was in slowly shrunk as fallen branches and leaves closed the distance between them. She cursed at herself for not moving, for not heading straight back to camp when the ordeal happened. Why did she have to play the hero this time and try to stop any of the villains? Time passed agonizingly slow, with the sky getting darker by the second. She felt so weak compared to the rest of her class. They would have been able to get out of this easily, but no, she couldn't. How could she become a hero if she couldn't even save herself from danger? Aki! Her eyes widened as she heard her name being called. She wondered if she had imagined it until another shout echoed through the trees. Help! I'm over here! Please, someone help me! She cried as she used her quirk to bring the beam of light above the location was at. She heard twigs snapping as a familiar strand of ice covered a section of flames, leaving her a free path. There he was, standing before her. She had burn marks scattered on her body, and she seemed weakened by the amount of smoke she had inhaled. He rushed over to her and gently wrapped his arms around the smaller girl's frame. Aki, I'm so glad you're alive, he breathed heavily, gently stroking her back as she gently sobbed into his shoulder. I thought nobody would find me, she whispered in between sobs, happy to be in his embrace. Come on, we can't stand here much longer. He looked down at her and saw her eyes slowly begin to close. He knew she was too weak to walk on her own. He wrapped an arm behind her back and under her legs, holding her in a bridal position. She leaned her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeats speed up with every step he took. They soon arrived back at the camp. Immediately, medical personnel took action and rushed towards the two, calling for the ambulances to be ready to take off. She couldn't remember much. Her vision was blurred as she faded in and out of darkness. But the one thing she could make out was the multicolored-haired boy grasping onto her hand, pleading for her to recover. The entire time Aki was in the hospital, Todoroki didn't leave her side for a second. He'd make sure all her needs were met, despite hers and the doctor's protests. She was grateful for this, smiling at every moment she could. She had thanked him many times, but still feeling guilty for making him go through all of this trouble. It was quiet now. All of the doctors had left her to be for the night, leaving her and Shoto alone. She slowly sat up and looked at his frame. He gently stroked his hair as he lay almost motionless by her side. She placed the covers over him, being careful not to disturb him, and planted a small kiss on his forehead. My hero. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed your time here, please be sure to like the video. If you would care to hear more, please consider subscribing. Farewell for now, my loves.